Hello again, another year, another tier list for everything that I've watched for the first time this year. Overall, 2023 saw a reduction in videos for me, but hopefully that quantity is traded in for quality and the reviews are more enjoyable. If there's anything you'd want me to focus on in 2024, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear any kind of feedback at all from any subscribers or even just casual viewers. If there's a need or there's a want, chances are I am more than happy to try my hand at filling it. So without further ado, let's get rocking and rolling. Although the reviews are down, like I said, my movie watching is up. So with a lot more movies to go through this year, I'll do things a bit differently than I did in 2022. I'll be reviewing anything that I've seen for the first time this year, whether it was released in 2023 or not. So that means old movies. That also, in theory, means movies from the future, if I find them. It means television seasons and series and specials as well. And because it is a longer list this year, I intend to keep my comments a bit shorter. Hopefully just a sentence or two each. But, you know, I'm strikingly verbose. Absolutely not the soul of wit, as Claudius might say. We're just going to be moving straight through in the order I watched and logged everything on my Letterboxd this year. These rankings should line up pretty closely with what I rated things there, and my comments should be similar. However, they are subject to the sands of time. So if you want a sneak preview of these sorts of tier lists, or just want to talk movies with me on the coolest social media in town, hit me up on Letterboxd. Roulette Films, happy to follow back and check out your 4 favorites too. Always down to learn and discover something I haven't heard of before. Anyway, let's get going. On to the reviews. The Last of Us. I reviewed the pilot, but my sentiments and praise from that ring through the entire season. I loved it fully and found the characters complex, intricate, tragic, and sick. My top recommendation for TV this year. U571. Matthew McConaughey simply looks incorrect with a buzz cut. Also, what the hell was this submarine made of? Because that thing got shelled like 400 times and was still kicking. However, it is still a solid and quintessential dad film. Office Space. There is no pain quite like having your entire life and career lambasted by a film that's 30 years in the rear view with perfect accuracy, with not a single thing truly having changed. Delicious. The Pale Blue Eye. I am a slut for gothic mystery, as many of you know, and here I was damn near putting out. Christian Bale, Edgar Allan Poe, Snowfall, a mystery I did not immediately solve? Say no more. The Menu. If this movie wasn't hilarious and scathing enough, Soek's reasoning for killing the actor and his assistant makes it instantly top-tier material. Gorgeous. Also, I love food and dining, so this is quite literally me. Terror on the Prairie. I speak from a realm of experience and displeasure when I tell you there is not enough room in the world to make this abomination put to screen tolerable. Do not watch it. Not even irony can bring you release. Fuck you, Gina. Fuck you, Ben. Why is everyone in this so awful? Watch my TikTok about it for more suffering. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This was really amazing. Unfortunately, I didn't catch this in its release year, but it was superbly animated and probably one of the most fun experiences I had in the theater this year. It's easily my favorite of Mulaney's body of work, and a good sign of things to come for this year in animation in general. Knock at the Cabin. I liked it and thought it was a really interesting concept that was executed well. However, I can totally see how it doesn't do the job for some people. Overall, though, Batista was great in this, and I think this is one of the better Shyamalan projects. Tar. Fucking jump scare, Jesus Christ, man. But also really compelling, sort of like watching an evil train wreck in slow motion. The ending is so hilarious as well, which is just a perfect comeuppance and a perfect cherry on top for this movie. Bad Boys. Michael Bay definitely made this, mostly because of the problematic, lots of stuff, but also because of this.
You forgot your boarding pass.
Yeah. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Every time I think about this movie, there is a new thing I find to dislike about it. Its only saving grace is the slimy, freshly reborn ass cheeks of MODOK. Troll. Lots of feet in this movie, man. Nice. The Naked Gun. Files from the Police Squad. O.J. Simpson? Also just very funny. The Void. One of the first horror movies in a while where I felt seriously anxious at times and a bit disturbed. I'm giving a strong recommend to this one, and I'm glad I heard about it and wound up checking it out. See how they run. S-L-U-T, slut, slut, slut. That's me. It's a murder mystery. It's kooky. It's funny. I am a simple man. Cinema. Love the soundtrack as well. Vivarium. That kid fucking sucks, man. But then again, so does the lack of serious exploration of this big idea that the movie presents us with. Though, I thought it could do a lot more with what it had. It's underwhelming, but not outright bad. The Spiderwick Chronicles. I never saw this when I was the target demographic, but based on what one would expect from its title and its poster and its summary, it's a lot better than you'd imagine. Still very much a kid's film though, but a solid one at that. Bodies, bodies, bodies. Not nearly as murder mystery as I had initially thought and hoped it would be, but still good enough with hilarious flashes and a lot of fun moments. Rachel Zegler is always a treat, and I like this one. Scream 6. I really love the use of New York City in this one. Really, most of my thoughts are in my review, but it's a unique entry to the franchise that takes advantage of its placement, both chronologically and geographically. I'd suggest checking it out. It's even got a whole Jenna Ortega in it. Smile. Late to the party here, but this is basically It Follows Jr., right? The unraveling of the mystery was alright, but calling it a mystery is a bit generous. It's not very scary, not super thrilling, and not very creative. But it's an okay entry within the field of light horror, so I can see its appeal. Finch. Another movie with a very telegraphed path forward, but somehow this one did not have its impact lessened because of it. Tom Hanks is just special like that, I suppose. The perfect thing for your parents to throw on one night and then immediately start snoozing. Malum. This is a remake of a really well-regarded indie horror film that I felt didn't hit quite right for me. In retrospect, it seems most of what I would have wanted from this film was given to me by The Void, which I caught earlier in the year. Still, for an almost exact remake, I felt too much was missing here for it to be ignored. Solid, but not amazing. Also, one of the actors watched my review, which, holy shit, what a legend. Cool dude. Thank you, Christopher. Swiss Army Man. Damn. A lot of farting in this one, huh? Also, kind of tragic and sad, and a little bit beautiful sometimes. Very unexpected conclusion, so yeesh. Really good though. Murder Mystery 2. Nowhere near as well done as the first. It's dumb fun with way more feelings of dumb than it has fun. The mystery isn't interesting, neither are the character arcs really. There's some decent spectacle here and there with a couple interesting set pieces, but it's a disappointment when compared to its predecessor, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This felt like a fever dream with all the licensed songs and all the characters all verbally exclaiming what their arcs and motivations were so blatantly out loud so many times. But also Jack Black, so that was cool. But not enough Jack Black, which is less cool. John Mulaney's Baby J. Funny, but I didn't laugh nearly as much as I did at his other specials. Perhaps it is simply because there's still that presence of issue lingering in the air, or maybe it's because his material isn't as good as his previous material. It's still Mulaney though, and he's still good, but I don't think it's him at his best. Ghosted. The most interesting part of this movie to me was that it had the Exorcist stares. There is an interesting movie in here somewhere, but that is not the movie that I watched. I rant more about this in my real review on it, but any interesting parts of the movie seem to be actively avoided. I don't recommend this one. You should avoid it. Donnie Darko. I had only known about this movie as being one of the edgelord Literally Me movies, so when I watched it, I was not expecting that. It's a really interesting film that had me thinking for a long time after the credits started rolling. Also, I assume this movie is why I never really hear the song Mad World anywhere else, because that was really, really iconic. Good watch. Spirited Away. Damn, it's a classic for a reason, I guess. My only complaint is that it took me so long to get around to this. Quite whimsical, I can't really think up any praise that hasn't already been sung for this gem. If you're like me and somehow still haven't seen it, please do so. Black Swan. Another masterpiece, but this one residing on a far more visceral and dark side of the spectrum. Natalie Portman is phenomenal in this, and really it cannot be understated how gripping Black Swan is. Even with all I'd heard about it over the years, it still managed to meet my very, very high expectations. Another must-watch. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Speaking of swans, this was a fitting swan song to the lovable misfits of Marvel. I talk a lot in my review, so we'll keep it terse here. It has a banger soundtrack, banger characters, and a banger emotional conclusion for the squad. Get up there, studs. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It manages to build on all the amazingness of the first entry and in some ways even exceeds it. Though it's not nearly as tight and punchy as the original, it definitely has the makings of an instant classic if Part 3 manages to stick the landing. If you're mad about this ending on a cliffhanger, you're kind of a bum, I don't know what to tell you. Go listen to the soundtrack, that might fix you and your mood. Life. That little thing was not fucking around, I can tell you that much. Also, a crazy cast considering that there are 5 people in this movie. It's basically modern Alien, but not quite as good as Alien. Still, strong recommendation. Asteroid City. This is some classic Wes Anderson. Sometimes not as perfect as he's capable of being, but the highest highs and biggest emotions hit just as good as some of his other bests. Margot Robbie's moment in particular is something that lingers in my mind as one of the best singular scenes I've watched this year. I urge those who have not seen this to give it a watch, and for those who have watched it and maybe didn't enjoy it as much as other Wes projects that you might be a fan of, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Pitch Perfect. It is really weird experiencing a cultural phenomenon a decade after the fact. It's a testament to the script and the actresses in the movie that even with having all these jokes and moments spoiled for me over the years, I still had such a good time watching Pitch Perfect. Good film. Saving Private Ryan. You know, there's a reason why Spielberg is sort of, without any sort of conversation, considered one of the GOATs. I can now definitively say a large part of this is Saving Private Ryan. There is simply no one who does it quite on the level that he does it. They do not make them like they used to, but that's because they are not Steven Spielberg and couldn't. even if they wanted to. Blade Runner 2049. But that being said, do you really need to make them like they used to when you are Denis Villeneuve? Even though I watched this work of art on a plane, the stature of its masterpiece was not lost on me. It is beautiful and a transcendental work of sci-fi. This belongs in a museum. The Departed. Marty, my guy, my buddy, my pal. Didn't they tell you that you need a license to ball this hard? Even with the big twist being taken from me years ago, this movie still had me gripping at my seat and digging my nails into my cushions. It's intense, it creates anxiety and stress in droves, and it is a true masterpiece. I keep calling these movies dad movies, but this and Saving Private Ryan are far and away like dad movie Hall of Fame, and I mean that with the highest honors. This is a certified classic. Mad Max Fury Road. The action is as insane as every character in this movie, and you are glued to the screen like you just huffed an entire spray bottle's worth of chrome paint. Another delectable watch that I am overjoyed to have finally seen. Dungeons & Dragons. I am well and truly devastated that this movie was not more successful. It is just so fun and so charming, and I really just want more of it. It scratched the itch that has been left with me since the last good Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and the more I learned about how this film was made, the more I grew to love it. It's a great watch, and I can only hope the love for it builds over time. Extraction 2. That one-take sequence in the prison was really cool, but it kind of felt like things tapered off into whelming to underwhelming territory beyond that. Also, I gotta get on this man's physical therapy regimen. He was back, locked, and loaded in like a week flat. What the hell? This is the type of movie that not only your family, but you fall asleep to. Then you wake up wondering if you've missed 5 minutes or 50 minutes, because the story makes as much sense either way. 50 First Dates. Back when Adam Sandler was still trying to cook and had that charm. The same cannot be said for Rob Schneider, though. This guy is sort of like body odor for movies in that your eyes instantly recognize and want to avoid it every time you see him on screen. Also, his role, is it racist? Because it kind of feels like it. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Tom, you beautiful son of a bitch. Keep trying to kill yourself in increasingly convoluted ways, and I will keep buying tickets. I am jazzed as a saxophonist for Part 2. I love trains, what's more to say? Lots more, but you'll have to look at my review to find out what that is specifically. Bullet Train. Again, I love trains, and this train goes very fast. Need I say more? I thinkn't. Barbie. Perhaps my standout of the year, Barbie was simply a certified banger on every possible level and in every possible way. Themes, emotions, comedy, cast, crew, set design, soundtrack, character arcs, all of it slapping harder than a freshman in high school who recently discovered what a 5-star is. Chef's kiss. Review has a lot more praise. Nimona. Another banger, one of the best animated movies I had the pleasure of seeing this year. Themes and arcs were so resonant, it really had me in my feelings. Nimona was such a fun and hilarious character, and this was such a unique and interesting use of the fantasy setting. I loved it, and I really want more. The Gray Man. I mean, it's got Ryan Gosling, so that counts for something. This is like if Ghosted was okay, I think. I don't know. Generic, but not in an insulting sort of way, it will keep you busy for the amount of time that you leave it on, and sometimes that's a good thing. The Lost City. Let's go! We love adventure movies. We love rom-coms. We love this movie. So hilarious, so good. I want a sequel. I want 10 sequels. Is this my addiction? Oppenheimer. It's just so easy to love. Art in its purest form. Every single thing about Oppenheimer is executed to the highest degree. Maybe I didn't love it as much when I first saw it, but it is one of those works of art that simply becomes more and more impactful the more you think about it. I imagine I will continue to appreciate this more and more as time passes. Cinema. When Harry Met Sally. A film I expected to be a slog, but really the only part I didn't enjoy was how fucking sleazy Harry is in this for so much of its runtime. Like, what kind of negative amounts of game does this guy have to have in order to just start harassing this woman the moment they hit the road? I suppose it speaks to the film's quality that I was so invested in wanting something better for Sally, though. Pretty good. Talk to me. Speaking of super shitty protagonists, hi there. Wow, I said it in my review, but she's in the running for like the Mount Rushmore of horror movie jackasses. This is a good, scary, intense ride that will shock you and then shock you again, even after the fact that you learn that it's Australian. The Pope's Exorcist. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. But really, me saying that was probably the most fun I had with this movie. Not so great. But the ending where they tease like 999 different sequels is pretty fucking funny. You are so not invited to my bat mitzvah. Let's go. We love a good low-stakes teen drom-com. It felt really well acted and just had me more invested than I should have been. So this is the kind of Hollywood nepotism that I am definitely cool with. Fun watch. A Haunting in Venice. Kenneth I love you. Keep making whodunits with this sort of camera work and direction and set design, and I will gobble them up like the ravenous and gluttonous consumer that I am. Play that little Belgian detective to your heart's content. I am your #1 supporter, King. The Parent Trap. Why was this so good? Why was this, so good? I was under the impression over the years that this was some Disney Channel original and not like an actual serious, honest-to-God, really good movie. Why didn't my girlfriend make me watch this sooner? Good shit. No one will save you. This movie was at one point in the same room as Steven Spielberg, and I mean that as a compliment. This movie was also made for streaming, and I mean that as a critique. Check out my full review if you don't catch my drift, but also just check this movie out, too. It's good. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Absolutely adored the animation style for this one. Really a great year for mainstream American animation, and I hope this gets more people to branch out in the medium to explore a wider variety of stories being told around the globe this way, myself included. Great fun and just art in motion. Check this one out. Black Mirror, Lock Henry. Classic Black Mirror dread in a disturbing new way. It's awful and keeps you glued to its narrative until it plays out in the terrible fashion that you know it will. It's a very grounded subject for the normally sci-fi anthology series that is still every bit as effective as its higher concept ideas. Ahsoka. Star Wars was never the deity that most people try to claim it was, but whatever Ahsoka is a far cry from what Star Wars has the potential to be. References, standing around, teasers for the next big thing, much ado about absolutely nothing in terms of story and theme and character arcs. Really just not much at all about this is good. Werewolf by Night. Franchise media that bangs. This is what we're talking about. Michael was cooking, and I love a Halloween special. Give me more like this, and if you don't know what I mean by that, check out my review of Werewolf to get a better idea. This is a banger. Killers of the Flower Moon. I left the theater feeling a strange dissatisfaction with the lack of resolution that the narrative presented, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? Killers of the Flower Moon is a painful telling of a particularly terrible manifestation of the American machine. Greed and bigotry and apathy combine into a malevolent maelstrom to strike tragedy after tragedy into the rightful owners of our nation's lives. It's a story that not only deserves to be told, but deserves to be heard. Attack on Titan series finale. This one is a more bombastic take on the heavy themes of genocide and race wars, and quite different tonally. The finale was absolutely entertaining and a great conclusion for a lot of characters, but I felt its message missed the mark in some serious ways. I explain further in my review, but overall I was left wanting. Renfield. Late to the party, but this movie is squelchy and silly and insane, exactly what you'd expect from a movie with Nicolas Cage playing Dracula. I finally got around to it. It's really just dialed up to 11 over and over and over again in quite absurd ways, in a good way more often than a bad way. Evil Dead Rise. Okay, I am not the most familiar with the Evil Dead, but even I know enough to understand that this walks a perfect line. There's campy action, there's disgusting horror, there's breathtaking tension. I really love this one, and it has me wanting to check out every other entry into the franchise that I've not yet seen. The Mask. This is definitely a Jim Carrey movie. Almost as crazy as the stuff he manages to pull off in this movie is the fact that the city is named Edge City. Good thing I watched this in 2023, where that was definitely not a major distraction for me at all. Now, excuse me, I am going to make a withdrawal from the Edge City Bank. Hunger Games, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Very enjoyable time. Unexpected high for me was the music that Lucy Gray was singing and how it captured that sort of folksy bluegrass feel of Appalachia, like her District 12 is intended to represent. I also found it to be a really interesting sort of mythic origin story within the realm of the Hunger Games series, but check out my full review for more thoughts about this one. Still though, really, really good. The Sound of Music. A movie that you hear about all your life about being a classic, and finally when you sit down and watch it, you understand right away what puts it in such high regard. Really just magnificent, beautiful, and powerful. Shout out to my roommate Jack for finally getting us to put this one on. The Killer. Honestly, super mid, and that's being a little generous. Technically, it is wonderful, but it does nothing that hasn't been done to death before, and the sophomoric set list of licensed songs doesn't help much. One standout action scene with Fassbender in Florida doesn't make me feel better about missing out on the far more interesting story of his romantic partner, who seems to be more the victim of abuse and Stockholm Syndrome than like a real girlfriend. No Hard Feelings. I was so excited for this one all year. Carrie and I were searching for it for months on end on all streaming sites, but it never seemed to be available. Finally we found it. And it lived up to the hype I had built up for it in my head. It's a rom-com for the modern era that doesn't rely on references that will already be dated by the time it releases. It's just a good, fun, and occasionally emotional time. If you're on the fence, please give it a try. I guarantee it will surprise you at least once, probably 3 times. Could even be 4. Barbie in the Nutcracker. This was a fever dream. The animation was complete ass. I felt like I was witnessing spinning, melting plastic, and I think I got motion sickness. Also, she cracker on my nut till I Tchaikovsky. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Like, really, really bad, dude. Adventure movie fans stay losing, and I hate it. This does not feel at all like it should. It looks downright atrocious at times, and has a story that seems to be competing with the dogshit visual effects in a who can be more gratingly terrible contest. I could say so much more about this movie, but I am not sure it deserves more to be said about it. It's a bitter and unfulfilling note to go out on for a classic character, and very nearly a sour end to this list. Leave the world behind. Not bad, but not what it thinks it is. Whatever hope this movie had of moving into the higher tiers was squandered by a direction that draws too much attention to itself, and its message becoming moot once you realize that its producers used to queue up drone strikes like songs on a Spotify playlist. It insists upon itself, Lois. Hope everyone had a really good 2023. Let me know what you thought of my rankings, if you enjoyed anything more or less than I did, if there was anything you were surprised that was on this list, or something that you're surprised didn't make the list. I hope this year was good to you, and that it's one worth remembering. Here's to 2024, and whatever growth it may bring. So, until next year.